For those, I can see, hi. I can see a few of you out there that have been to a few of these before. So you know, I do not do technical talks. I affectionately say that I'm a businessman. My degree is in business, and I just really understand technology. And so I work on the business side. Currently, I do IT risk management and working with people. And so while I do have a relatively strong understanding of the technology that's behind our industry, I just don't spend too much of my days in that. And so I guess just a little history. I attended my first SAINTCON 9 years ago, and I came here looking for a great conference and the talks about frameworks and controls and some of the more boring to other people things, and I didn't get any of it, and I walked away a little frustrated, because it just seemed like a whole week of people getting their geek on, and I didn't quite understand it until I had a few weeks of kind of like distilling, and I filled out the questionnaire and told them what a terrible conference it was, but I'm of the belief that if you have a complaint and you don't follow up with suggestions or actions, then you're just a whiner, and I don't want to be a whiner. And so the next year I submitted a talk, and they were gracious enough to allow me to talk, and except for the one COVID year, I've been able to present here. And for those of you who this is your first time, so I have changed my ways. I think SAINTCON is probably the best conference for this industry. I love being here, and it's great to have you out here with us. I am not on the staff, but I am a SAINTCON evangelist, and so keep coming back. And even if your job changes and you get into something like library sciences, keep coming back. And it's just a really it's a great way to get your geek on. And so, but I like. Was anybody here last year when I did my talk? Yeah, well, you're my boss. You have to be here. So, anybody else? Okay, so I guess this is a little bit of a follow-up to last year, and if you weren't here, that's great. Go out to YouTube. You can pull it up on YouTube, and you can watch that. The title of it was Dungeons and Dragons in IT, and so we had going over all of the alignments and how they apply to employees. And so this is kind of a chapter 2 of that talk. And so every IT system has these 5 components in them. And because the medium with which we work is computers and the digital world, there's a tendency to focus on securing data and securing our infrastructure and securing our applications and securing our networks and our communications layers. And that's great and wonderful. But I've been vocally opposed to the idea of annual cybersecurity training. I personally, and if anybody knows of any studies that prove me otherwise, please get them to me. But I have never seen it work. And it's quick. Nobody likes it. They get their half an hour done, whatever the requirement is, and they don't think about it very much, unless, of course, there's an active incident and things are shut down and people get really excited. And so I do spend a lot of time focusing on the people side of things. And And what can we do to better secure that component of our system? Loudly, when you see this, what do you think? The weakest link, right? Yeah. Just quickly raise your hand if people are the weakest link in all of this, right? Yeah, we hear that a lot, and I'm not arguing that point, okay? But I really do think that we need to kind of change things up a little bit. Rather than calling them the weakest link, let's start working with them. And so that's what I want to talk about today is how do you, let's understand who it is that we're working with and come up with some ideas to reimagine this work rather than just saying, people, they're the weakest link. Yeah, they are, but let's fix that. Okay, so a little bit of history. I like history. I think I miss my calling sometimes. But so we're humans. Raise your hand, as I've only got 4 of these stories. So if you know any of these stories, just raise your hand so that way I know that there are other people out there. Anybody know about the Great Emu War? Yeah. Okay, so 1932. Australia officially declared war against the emus. The emus were destroying their crops. Something had to be done, right? Somebody has to do something. And so the government officially declared war against the emus. And they sent the army out there to go take care of the emus. Well, the emus did not go lightly. After about a month, the army went back home. They declared the emus the winner. Okay, true story. Dancing plague. Anybody know about this one? I can't believe you do know about this one. So this is 1500s, early 1500s. A woman, we don't know why, started dancing in the streets. And she kept dancing for days. And then people started joining her. And people were dancing in the streets nonstop for a week or so. They had like about 400 people dancing until they either collapsed through exhaustion or they died of a heart attack. Dancing. Pepsi's military. Okay, you know about this one. This is funny. Okay. Early 1990s, the Soviet Union entered into a deal with Pepsi Company. For soda, the Soviets gave them, let me pull this up, I just want to make sure I get the numbers right, 17 submarines, a cruiser, a frigate, and a destroyer for soda. At that time, Pepsi was the 6th largest military in the world. They finally, took all of that equipment and sold it off to, I think it was Sweden, and they broke it all and recycled all of the parts. But Pepsi's military. Rubber duckies. Again, early 1990s, 1992, I believe, that there was a shipment coming across the ocean carrying all kinds of rubber duckies and bath toys, and one of the containers fell off, and over 20,000 rubber duckies fell into the ocean. And as the currents do, they took those rubber duckies everywhere. And so there's still rubber duckies out there floating around, some around the world. They've been to Alaska. They've been found in Australia, South America. They've been found off the coast of Africa. And rather than people getting upset, scientists said, no, this is great. And they tracked the duckies so they can understand how the currents flow around the planet. And if you are into collectibles, get one of these duckies. They're collection items. So just silly things that happen because we're just silly people. Okay, so 2008, 15 years ago, Verizon came out with their first report. And they were trying to help just get our brains around the state of cybersecurity. And you can see here some of the things around that time. Smartphones, just not very old. They were only about a year old during the time that they were reviewing. 2006 is when they came out. Bitcoin wasn't even a thing. Okay, Siri's not even for 3 more years. And so this is how long Verizon has been doing this work. And in 2022, this was their 15th year doing it. And you can see there in the first one, people were still the problem. After 15 years of talking about this, people were still the problem. Okay. So in this year, however, if you were to go to your bosses and you were to say we had an 8% improvement in any part of your industry, that would be huge. And so finally, something happened. There was a click, and we went from low to mid 80s down into the mid 70s. So we still got a long way to go. This is 3 out of every 4 events are a result of people. And so we're going in the right direction. We have a lot more room to grow. Okay, here are a few of just in the last couple of years. So Facebook, you may remember seeing some of these in the news. April of this year, 533 million users, information exposed. Move It, 200 organizations, 17.5 million. We know about Zoom bombing. Where's my mouse pointer? There it is. The T-Mobile, that's one I kind of, you'd think they'd learn. January of 23, they had an incident, exposure of a lot of customer records. And again in May. They talked about it being a temporary system glitch, which resulted in unauthorized disclosure of customer records. But what's kind of surprising is that one in May was the 9th incident in 5 years. And so my hope in this discussion is to talk about, why is it that people are so slow to move in the right direction, why they're so quick to click, why they're so slow to adopt, why they're so quick to point fingers, okay? And so this is really about the psychology of humans and how we can, if we understand that, kind of take advantage. So we talk about social engineering, and in our world, social engineering, that phrase is a bad thing. But the concept in and of itself is not necessarily bad, okay? You can see up here, our entire lives were being impacted by external stimulus. And most of that comes from the relationships that we have. But it's the purpose behind that stimulus is what makes social engineering either good or bad, okay? That it can be an influence. An influence is a good thing. Influencing is about inviting people and swaying people, and it's a person's capacity to have an effect or to motivate somebody else. If you're an influencer, your work is not designed to force or to obligate somebody. Or on the other hand, if you're a manipulator is about exploitation, it's about control, it's about using emotional, psychological attacks for personal gain. Okay, so social engineering, it's a term, but if we understand, if we understand, what it is about people and their hot buttons and what what motivates them to do whatever that next thing in their life is, then hopefully maybe we can invite and sway and help them to make better choices. So, why does social engineering work? Both the good and bad. This idea of trust in our society today, we have this, we don't want to rock the boat. And so as a result, we don't necessarily stand up against that which is contrary to our understanding of the world that's around us. And talk a little bit about it, but we don't want to get into any type of contention with people. And so if somebody can come in with a poise of authority, if you see somebody in a fireman's outfit or in a suit, or there's a tendency within our society to just kind of trust. Well, look at them; they must be somebody of authority, and so we'll take that. Urgency, I would say probably one of the things that just drives me crazy about living in Utah is when I get a knock on the door. I have on my storm door, no solicitors, and I get a knock on the door and there's a solicitor. And they say, hey, I was just talking with your neighbor, and they, and I just point to my door, I know it says no solicitors, and it bothers me. And because behind that knock is a pressure sale. And our economy is set up with this weekend only. My wife and I went to the RV show at the Expo Center in Sandy, and every one of them, these are the best deals that we're going to have all year, and if you don't buy now, you're going to lose out. And we already knew that we weren't going to buy; we just wanted to see what was out there, And I find it funny as I listen to the radio on my way home from work. Paris RV is trying to make room for the new models, and so they're cutting them to the lowest that they'll ever be. And so, there's this idea of pressure, this urgency, and we talk about it all the time with fishing. If that message is about urgency, you got to click now, you got to hurry up, you got to get this done. Whoa, stop, take a break, right? Okay, well, urgency, reciprocity. That quid pro quo. This is playing on. And I think it's a little unfortunate that, we have a lot of guilt in people today. We do talk a little bit about mental health and, people feeling like they're not measuring up, and so they have some innate, or not innate, but some built-in guilt with where they are, and so the pressure of, I helped you with that, you need to help me with this. Or if you help me, you scratch my back, I'll scratch yours. Curiosity. We are a very curious creature. You know the phrase, curiosity killed the cat. Well, it didn't kill the cat. The cat's got 9 lives. But we use that because cats are very curious. But for good or for bad, and what we talk about, you can see up here pleasantry and the macabre. We have a tendency to be drawn based on our current emotional state to either something that's going to heighten our joy or our pleasure, or to something that is, like you're driving on the freeway and there's an accident. What does everybody do? That there's this need to look, and so that curiosity is a huge tool that's used by attackers. Social compliance, And we have the cancel culture. If you don't follow a certain belief, then we don't want to even be around you. Some people call it setting boundaries, and I'm not saying that setting boundaries is a bad thing, but setting boundaries to exclude people from your life because you don't agree with them. And then there's just information overload. If we can understand, and that prior list is just some of the things that cause people to act or react. And there's much more that's there. But if we understand how people work and how they think, why they do the things that they do, really more on a basic primeval level, then we can help to use that back to influencing them into better habits. Okay. Go ahead. If you want to participate, I'd encourage you. I have a couple of mentees in this, and so we're going to have a couple quizzes. But if you look at these three, which is the boss that gets the best engagement, and which is the boss that gets the least engagement? So the first one, if you don't like the QR code, you can see up there at the top. You can go to menti.com on your device and put in that number, and so that way you can participate here.
Yeah, nice trick.
Yeah, well, that's why I made sure it was up there at the top, so that way if you don't like QR codes. Gee, now that we've got a lot of votes in there, I'm not asking which boss is the best boss. It's which boss gets the best engagement from those that are on their team. Okay. I think it's pretty clear. Everybody is saying 3. Yes. The answer is yes. You can get the best engagement from being nice. Okay, next one is which boss gets the least engagement from their team? Interesting. Looking pretty even. It was number 1. So in the book, Marcus Buckingham and Ashley Goodall, they wrote a book called 9 Lies About Work. And in that, they shared a study that was done. And in that study, they found that a boss who gives no feedback has a team that has plummeting engagement. The boss that consistently gives the majority negative feedback, their team has 40 times more engagement than the boss that has no feedback. And then the boss who gives positive feedback is about 60 times more than the boss that has no feedback. And so what they were saying is that we as a people, there are a few out there that like to be alone, but generally speaking, we like to be in a community be part of a group, be together, engage with other people. And so even if it's negative criticism, we want to have interaction. Okay? So if we understand this about the employees that we work with, once a year for an hour is not going to do it. You have to engage with the people in your organization on a regular basis, preferably with positive feedback. On occasion, as a need arrives, negative feedback is okay when done in the right manner, but don't leave them alone, okay? They want to know. I had somebody that I spoke with, that I work with on a regular basis, who thanked me. We did a phishing test at work, and this person received their phishing email and didn't know what to do, but because she and I had talked over the last year and a half, and she's asked my advice on security things, she knew enough to put a pause. And we took a look at it. We got it sent over to people to analyze it, and so she passed the test. And she was really happy about that because it was the regular meetings, and this is what she told me. It says, the fact that you took the time on a regular basis to talk to me about this, that's what helped me to be able to recognize the email for what it was. And so make sure that you don't just tell them once and then leave them be. Some other things that are good in this positive feedback. Of course, we have the security awareness training. Those are important, if not required by regulation or policy. That's a great way. If we're engaging with our people on a regular basis throughout the year, the security awareness training is less about don't click here, click there, and more about here's some of the new things that are happening within the cyber world. And you can help elevate their overall understanding. Having good goals and giving proper rewards. I like this, a couple down, gentle nudging, okay? Encourage people, even if they mess up. It's a great opportunity to educate, to encourage, to let them know that the world is not on fire because they missed something. That empathy will go a long, long way. And then that last one, if done right, peer and social pressures are very effective tools. Okay, I say not just for the users. A little bit of a background on technology. Go ahead and this one. Please pick what you think is the technology. Pick, of these four, pick the technology. What's that? No. I know, you wanted to. Again, because I'm a little devious sometimes, I didn't tell you this is intended to be a trick question. Anybody else want to put in knowing that? Yes. Okay, so you asked, Can we select more? Why'd you ask that? Yes, I agree with that. Technology is anything that makes the task more effective and or more efficient. Okay? That first one was a hose. If you think about it, I like to use that. That's my favorite example. I can go like this and get water in my hands at the bib and walk over to my garden and put it at the plant. I can do that all day. Or I can hook up a hose. It makes it very effective, very efficient. I get the water right where I need to do it, and it works very quickly for me. So when our society looks at technology, when we say technology, we think computers, we think electronics, and I want to have a little bit of a shift in this portion that if we can understand what technology is, then we can understand working with the business people, helping them to identify exactly what is it that you are trying to accomplish. And then let's find the right technology and get that put into place in a secure manner. But ultimately, we want to make sure that they understand that technology is everybody's business, or security is everybody's business. Okay? If you're on the security team, it's not just you. I'm frequently asked to, we need your approval before we can move forward with this. And I gently remind them that I approve nothing. I advise, I counsel, I inform, I review, I give information, I read reports and then write on those reports, but I don't decide anything. Sometimes I wish I did, but that's a different story. But I'm trying to help them to understand that it's not our security department's job to take the whole load of security, that everybody has some skin in the game. Let me just put all these up. I know this is kind of a busy slide. You can see on the left you have management, or the business, and on the right you have the technology. Up above, you know, business needs and processes. Down below you have the IT administration and processes. And you know, this slide is really just about helping to understand, if everybody's got to have some type of skin in the game, you know, who has responsibility for what part. Because ultimately, well, unless you're government, well, maybe schools, ultimately, you're in the business to make a profit, right? And if you can't work as a team and be able to increase revenues and decrease costs, then you're not doing your business any service. In government, you want to reduce those costs. You want to make good, efficient use of the resources that come through tax money, or get them to raise taxes. I mean, who wouldn't want to pay 90% a year? But if everybody can understand what their role is, then you're not having the, you know, I like to think, you know, security is a left tackle of a football team. Their job is to protect the blind side. The left tackle's job is to protect the quarterback's blind side, or if they're left-handed, right side. But to see what the quarterback can't see, and to provide that protection so that way the quarterback can actually work with the rest of the team to get the ball down the field. Okay? All right, defense in depth. You've probably seen things, you know, similar to this. You know, you have firewalls and firewalls within firewalls within firewalls, and having your most important or sensitive information protected in higher degrees. And I agree with all of this from a technological standpoint, but what about the people? We can put all kinds of firewalls and configurations and patches into our infrastructure and communication application layers, but we need to kind of, again, as we reimagine the idea of how do we secure the people, how do we engineer a secure environment, we need to look at a defense in depth approach to our most important component in the system, and that's our users. And so you've probably heard GRC, governance, risk, and compliance. Governance is about evaluating and giving direction. Risk and the management is about coming up with a plan on how to implement that direction that was given. And on the compliance side is about taking the frameworks and controls that are determined by governance and risk and getting those implemented. And all three of these should be working in concert. And it's not intended to be hierarchical in the sense of importance. It's just understanding what the different roles and responsibilities, and those that are in governance should not be configuring servers or networking equipment or writing code. They should be directing. They should be looking at things in a more holistic approach. If you're in assurance or quality assurance, you know about COSO and the 3 lines of defense. The first line of defense are your executive team, but those frontline managers. Those frontline managers should understand what we are trying to do and accomplish, and if there's any deviation from the frameworks and the controls and the policies and the procedures and everything that have been set forth, they should be the ones to see that and then work with their team to get those things fixed. Okay? Second line of defense is in COSO, that's the risk management layer. These are the ones that are looking at where the highest risks are and making adjustments and modifications to frameworks and controls to help protect the organization. But part of that is to review that they're there to hopefully catch any issues that may have kind of fall through the cracks on that first line of defense. And then the third one is your internal audit. And again, I talk to people, the difference between audit and assessment. Audits are very formal, they're structured, they're very focused, they have a narrow scope, and they're looking at a very specific thing to make sure that the controls are, number one, designed properly and that they're effective. Okay, assessments are about anywhere from a wet finger in the wind all the way up to a rigor of an audit, but it's just a little less formal. Okay, but internal audit ideally should be there to ensure that anything that first line and second line have missed, internal audit hopefully will be able to pick up. Ideally, we would like our auditors to be frustrated, that they can't find anything, okay? They'll probably make something up anyway because that's how they get paid, right? Okay, it's not a management problem, or it is a management problem, it's not a technology problem. So I worked at a law firm before I moved to Utah. I was head of IT there. And we had a software system that was very heavily workflow driven. And we had somebody who didn't know how the workflow worked that entered a code in on over 30,000 accounts that the law firm handled that opened the door for a lawsuit on every one of those. And fortunately, the technology that we were using stank, and it brought everything to a grinding halt. And so when I went in to find out where the bottleneck was, I saw this happening and I was able to clean it out. What took him 30 seconds to do took me 3 days to undo. Okay? And when the end of it, the boss came in and said, you need to make sure that never happens again. And I said, well, the easiest way to do is to make sure he's not an administrator in the software. Well, no, he needs to have administrative access. I said, then it's not a technology problem. It's a management problem. Of course, the boss didn't like that answer either. Over 180 known cognitive biases. As I've studied and learned and tried to understand the psychology of people, and as I've looked into cognitive biases, I've come to realize everybody has them. The trick is to know which one you have, understand what it is, and then while you may not ever be able to shake that bias, that you may at least be able to be open enough to allow others to help you through that bias. And it's all about this, the worldview that we have. From the day that we're born, we talked about how we have all of this external stimulus that comes in, and everything that we do in all of our lives helps to shape the world that we see. Most of the time, the world that you see is not the real world. And I'm not talking just necessarily see, but the world that you accept to be the truth is not necessarily the real world. And it's all about perception, that how you receive a particular communication, how you look at an event and how it happened. What was your mental, intellectual, emotional state at the time of that? All of that is going to impact and frame how you rationalize and put it together in your head. And so if we understand that we have a worldview and a box that we work within, and we can understand that everybody has that also, and very likely that world and box that they have is not the same as yours. It's very clear in different studies that even twins growing up in the same home, under the same roof, same rules, have different views on the way the world is. And so if we understand that everybody has a worldview, and we understand the psychology of people, why people do the things that they do, and that they have an innate desire to be around people and to trust people and to be curious, and then we can help them and invite them and sway them and encourage them into a better way on the way we do cybersecurity. And so, anybody in electronics? Anybody know what these are? Yeah, the first one's resistance. What's the other one? What's that? Conductance. Yeah, so in electronics, what do they call the first one? Ohm. Do you know what the other one's called? Mo, okay? Ohm spelled backwards, okay? And it's conductance, okay? And resistance is not a bad thing. In electronics, resistance is not a bad thing, unless, of course, you're trying to get electricity to the right place, and too much resistance could become a bad thing. Okay, but if you don't have the right resistance and the right conductance, you either aren't going to get the electricity you need, or you're going to have too much and it becomes unsafe. okay? And this kind of becomes this idea of risk management, that we can implement. If you're like me, you love reading NIST 853, Rev 5. You can implement everything that's in there, and you can bring your entire environment to a screeching halt if it wasn't designed to work within that space. Okay, so too much resistance, and you're not able to get business done. But of course, if we have too much conductance, then when the lightning strikes, everybody gets burned. Okay? And so we need to have this really good balance of resistance and conductance. We need to understand through governance, risk, and compliance, and we need to understand, or we need everybody in our organization to understand which line of defense they work within, so that way we can help ensure that we have the right flow so the business, the organization can succeed. Okay, so I talked about contention a little bit. We all have a worldview, and we work with other people. We need to engage with other people, but we don't agree all the time. And so I have what I call the 4 C's of communication. I'm sorry, I don't have a slide on this. The first C is confrontation. And confrontation is always good. When you confront something, you're opening yourself up to new ideas, new possibilities, new ways of doing things. You're confronting an issue and you're learning from it. Confrontation is always good. The second C is conflict. Conflict is always neutral. Whenever you get 2 people in the same room, you will never agree on everything all of the time. You will have conflict. It is inevitable. So you have a choice. You can either go to the 3C, which is contention, and contention is always bad. Contention is argumentative. People get upset. Blood pressures go up. Contention's bad. The 4th C is always preferable, and that is charity. That when you have conflict with somebody, if you approach it in a charitable fashion, understanding that they have a worldview, they have a box, just like you do, you have empathy, then you're able to work through those issues. Okay. This slide, and we're kind of getting to the end of time, so I'll kind of put everything up here real fast. Anybody know theory of constraints, the evaporating cloud? Okay, Google that. Evaporating cloud, theory of constraints. That's what this is. Everybody has the same goal. We want a secure environment. We have different wants on the right. As a security professional, you want everything to be patched. Your server administrators want additional resources in order to do this common goal of security. We don't have enough time. We're too busy. There are other things that I have to get done. And so I want more resources because I need to be able to get all of the work done up on top. I want everything patched because I need no vulnerabilities for the hacker to exploit. Okay? These little, the off to the side, red X, that's the conflict. Remember, conflict is neutral. It's okay that we don't agree. Well, let's work through this. Those little yellow circles, sorry if you're colorblind, little circles with crosses in them. Those are assumptions. Those are the because, the whys. I need this because. Why do I have to do this? And so if we can work to eliminate those assumptions and get onto the same ground, then we can work to bring our needs together and we can come up with a different solution. Okay? Maybe applying that patch is not the right course of action. Maybe applying that patch is going to take too much effort. We have to rewrite too much code. Let's go and find a different compensating control to put in front of this. Okay? And so if we can address these assumptions, we can get a lot further in resolving the conflicts. In doing so, we need to work with whoever it is that we have a conflict with. And we need to be open to what they have to say to us. We need to promote education, and that education isn't go get another degree in cybersecurity, but go learn about the situation. Let's understand both sides of this together. Engage. You can see constructive is up there twice. But we want to have, again, this goes to theory of constraints, the 5 whys. Somebody says, this is what I need to do. Why? Well, because of this. Why? Well, because of this. Why? Well, then there's that other thing. Why? Go down 5 levels as to why. Take time, work through it. Don't be judgmental on it, and you'll actually get into the root of what those assumptions and what those holdbacks are. But as you go through this, always remember, be genuine and be patient. You are not going to be able to steer the ship quickly. Anybody ever hear of the 360-degree leader? This means that you do not need to have an executive level position in order to be able to lead your organization in the right direction. You can lead up, you can lead down, you can lead to the side. You can lead people that are not in your organizational line of authority. Leadership, John C. Maxwell, leadership is influence, nothing more, nothing less. It's about inviting people, swaying them, encouraging them into a better way. Nelson Mandela, it always seems impossible until it's done. Don't lose sight of the goal. Don't allow frustrations. I have them. My boss is there. Thank you so much for at least letting me bend your ear 4 or 5 times a day. It's going to be frustrating. I have countless bruises on my forehead from banging my head against the wall. But as long as you're persistent, you get little wins like, it was because I've talked to you that I knew that was a phishing email. So you'll find the wins, and if you look for them, you'll see them everywhere. But always remember, at the end of the day, everything we do, whether it's at work, whether it's in the family, whether it's with your neighbor, at church, at school, your kids' school, everything is about the relationships that you have. And you should make them good ones. Thanks. Appreciate the time. We have 3 minutes and 42 seconds left. All right, have a wonderful SAINTCON. Welcome, first years. It's good to have you.